Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 here. It has been a while since we've done one of these. And if people are wondering, let's just get that out of the way. Blake, you and I have had an unbelievable last 2 to 3 months.
Yeah, it's been an interesting summer. And yeah, a lot going on. And that way, no one thinks we just disappeared without reason. Yeah, there's been a lot going on. I know you'll talk about, yeah, here in a second, kind of what that entailed. But as you can see, too, by the way, we're trying out some new software and everything for our big return here. So we're going to kind of play around with this over the next week or so and see what works best. So, we're going to try some different things for you guys, but we know there are a lot of people out there that were following our stuff all throughout basketball, baseball, and yeah, then we just kind of had to shut her down for just a little bit. But I'll let Chris kind of talk a little bit more about that.
Well,
So.
and in case you're wondering about video quality, AT&T dug up my front yard for high-speed internet.
We've talked about this throughout the season.
Yes,
So
we have. This time a year ago, and it was supposed to be in by November of 2021, and here we are. So nothing we can do about that. But
no.
we're glad to be back, even if I'm a little blurry. But it's been a whirlwind of a last 3 months for both of us. I'll talk about mine, and I think it was literally just a few hours before tip off of the NCAA tournament's Thursday games in the round of 64. I found out I had a serious heart condition with a defective heart valve, which was either going to require one of two things. I was going to need surgery pretty quickly, or it was going to kill me in a year or two. So, not wanting to die this early,
Good
I
call.
opted for surgery and have now got a scar about here to here where they cracked open my chest, replaced my heart valve. That was Cinco de Mayo, so that will always have a special significance for me, and have been rehabbing ever since. So that'll be 8 weeks tomorrow. Still not at full speed, but full enough to do one of these, which is really nice.
Yeah. And again, we were certainly not going to push it. We know how much Chris
Yeah.
loves baseball and how much we know you guys enjoy baseball. We talked about it. I mean, a lot of you jumped into their basketball season, but we were really, starting to hit our stride in baseball season and get things going. But way more important than, even with the SEC doing their thing, it's College World Series and getting as many teams there and all that. It was just something we had to do. And, it's just one of those things, like you said, there's no way to kind of get the timing right on any of that stuff, that because it really doesn't matter. It's kind of way more important than what we're doing here. So, yeah, so I think that was obviously a big reason why we've waited and waited just to make sure, Chris was up and running, full speed and could properly get the bag back on his head when necessary.
Yes,
So
that
that was
that
the big reason why we waited so long. Because I mean, look, that's going to be a big part of the show moving forward. So, so yeah, now he is capable of doing that. We decided we could officially make our comeback. So
and I'm going to feel much better with this. It
yeah,
sapped so much of my energy. For 2 years, I had issues that I could not figure out, and so thank God for doctors and for St. Thomas West. Um,
yeah,
Good experience. And if in all seriousness, if you ever have a health issue that you're not feeling right, even if the doctors and nurses can't pinpoint it, keep pushing, because I'm glad I did. They had looked at me for a couple years, couldn't figure anything out, and finally a new battery of tests figured out the issue, which I had lived with since birth and didn't know. So in any case, yes, we had bigger plans for baseball than we were able to pull off due to my health. But let's talk baseball, because this week Ole Miss has won its first national title. So congratulations to the Rebels, Blake. That was one of the most incredible postseason runs I've ever seen.
well, I can remember the conversation we had before we left off. I think there was a specific conversation. I don't remember what video, but I remember the words coming out of your mouth about this is pretty much it for Ole Miss. Like they have to win this or it's over. Like I specifically remember this conversation again. I don't know what video it would have been, but I think we were talking about Ole Miss and Mississippi State. And it was at one
and they
point we're
and
like,
they lost.
yeah. And I was gonna say we were like, that was such a big I think it was that series, and we're like,
Yeah.
this is it. Like one of these teams are done after this. And what do you know? It's a team that was what 14-16 in the league that winds up winning the national championship. I mean, like you said, I haven't seen anything like it. It is one of those things where I think back to that conversation we had about how important that stretch of games was for Ole Miss, and you're thinking they have no chance, and they wind up getting there. As just kind of where they were picked in the field, and to get in and still make the run they made. I can't even. I mean, that's what we always say. Like, whether it's basketball, baseball, specifically those two. I think it's just different in football, but it's who gets hot at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
And man, they they got hot at the right time, and nobody could stop them. So
Well, the thing for them that was huge, well, like a couple things. Hunter Elliott and Dylan DeLucia were like their Koufax and Drysdale in the NCAA tournament, and were really good, honestly, the second half of the SEC season on. I don't think either of them started the season in Ole Miss's rotation, and in the bullpen, which was just awful most of the year. Goes almost a month in the tournament without giving up a run. It was crazy. Of course, when you have DeLucia and Elliott filling a lot of your innings, you don't have to use your bullpen as much, but still. And then you had Tim Elko getting big hits, which he always does. That guy's, I'm going to say, probably the most beloved player in Ole Miss baseball history. And one of them across all sports. I mean, I think Archie Manning will always be the king of that hill, but Tim Elko for baseball is certainly a guy that's going to be celebrated there forever, and deservedly so. And it's good to see because he is just seems like such a good guy. Everybody speaks so well of him. You like to see those guys do well. But man, what a year, Blake. I mean, I'll put it this way. You've now had, if Arkansas, sorry, Arkansas fans, but if you guys can catch a foul pop up, the league has got the last 5 national champions, all different teams, 208, 2008 on. The championship game has had at least one SEC team in it every year but one. I think that was Coastal Carolina and Arizona in 2016, if memory serves. That was the year the SEC didn't make it. Some years it's had both teams, like last year Vanderbilt, Mississippi State. So you've got 4 of the last 5 teams standing in Omaha. That doesn't include Vanderbilt and Mississippi State, which were the last 2 teams standing a year ago. Doesn't include LSU, which has won more national titles than any other SEC team and finished second in a regional this year. Doesn't include Florida, which probably behind Vanderbilt has had the best decade of any team in the NCAA in baseball. Doesn't include Tennessee, which was a dominant 56-9 and
yeah.
fell to Notre Dame. So that's 9 teams right there that we've gone through, and then you still have some other good teams left out too. I mean, it is incredible. I've said this for a while, but I think I believe it more than ever. I think the SEC is tougher in baseball than football.
Yeah, I understand it. Like you said, I mean, you look at as because you mentioned that to me. That was probably a couple weeks ago talking about that. Just sort of the who's not there more so than
Mm-hmm.
you look at who's there, but it's like the teams that are not there, and you think about what they've accomplished, and man, it is something to think about. Like, and I was just sitting there looking at just the standings in the SEC, and it is like you just look up and you're like, "Where's Ole Miss?" Well, they're way down there, and they wind up being the national champion. And you're looking at all these teams ahead of them, and you're thinking, "All right, look how well A&M was playing. Arkansas was right there with a chance, to get to the final against Oklahoma." By the way, Oklahoma, for those who forgot, they're going to be here soon too. So it was pretty much an SEC invitational with future teams as well in Omaha. So
Texas also one of the
Texas,
last 8.
yeah. So it's only going to get tougher. I think it's going to get only more competitive from here when you think about those two teams joining the mix. So yeah, it's in the team that, like you said, the team that won it all last year. That is just the bottom of the league this year, and it's just like, man, what a wild season. So
Yeah. I think this was one of the most crazy and unpredictable that I remember. The run scoring just went through the roof.
Yeah.
It felt like nobody could pitch until
Yeah.
Omaha, and even then, that was day to day.
Yeah. And I mean, like, you look at the team that was just rolling through everyone, just, doesn't get there. And I think that's something too. Like, it's just, you think about how remarkable of a season Tennessee had.
Oh
And
my goodness!
like, it will be talked about, but as we always know, we say this in with all the teams, in any sport, it's still going to be looked back on, and you're going to have that what if, but I don't think that can take away just how dominant they were during the season. So
I don't
it,
think that
it
team had a weakness. I mean, it wasn't
yeah,
starting pitching. You had Beam and Burns and Dolander. Dolander to me is one of the most gifted arms I have ever seen in this league. He's going to go high in next year's draft, and Chase Burns will in 2 years. I don't know about Beam as much. The bullpen, like those guys had all been there forever, and
mhm,
then they had a kid who throws 105. They could all throw strikes for the most part. So no weakness in the pitching staff. They lead the NCAA and ERA by like a run. It's crazy playing in the hitter's park. The lineup literally 1 to 9. You didn't want to pitch to any of them. They had 3 or 4 guys on the bench. They had platoon options. How many got what they have? 8, 9 guys that hit double-digit home runs. I mean, when you take that away, they could walk or hit doubles.
yeah,
I guess if you want to say relatively, their weakness was fielding, but that's relative. I think they were still top 15% in the country in fielding percentage. They had Gilbert and center making highlight reel plays. And it was one of the most balanced teams I've ever seen. And it just wasn't a place where you said, like with Tennessee, you were like, okay, where you could see them getting knocked off with somebody like Notre Dame. Notre Dame came in with the reputation of veteran guys who'd played a while, they're not going to get rattled. And so that was really about what profile team can knock Tennessee off more than it was, okay, here's Tennessee's weakness, and this is one of what's going to get them in the end. Now, I would say if you really want to pick something out, you could say you looked at their starting pitching outings down the stretch, and some of it was they were just giving some guys some rest, which I thought was smart. But I guess you could look at it and say Burns and Beam were a little shakier going down the stretch. Dolander had been two. Dolander actually had hit, I think, with a line drive at 1.2, which affected him. I mean, if you want to pick nits and say there was something in Tennessee that was a little bit of a crack, then I guess that's where you'd go. But I mean, you could that's when you really have to nitpick because the balance of the season for all those guys was elite.
yeah. I mean, look, it was a dominant run. There's no doubt about it. And again, you're going to play the what if game and wonder what happens. A couple things here or there, especially how that last game against Notre Dame played out, and it's the what if game. A lot of teams have played that, but I think especially for a team like that, you're definitely going to think about it more often just because of how good they were during the season. So yeah,
The portal is churning. LSU has added 2 kids from Vandy, Christian Little and Carter Young, right-handed pitcher and shortstop. And in a bit of an upset landed Tommy White, who had, I think, 20-something home runs at North Carolina State. LSU reloaded through the transfer portal last year with Jacob Berry. I mean, the draft will be here in, I think, 2 weeks. We'll do some coverage of that. But going to be a very interesting offseason. Someone on radio asked me, who do you see as the teams to beat next year? I said, well, I'll give you the answer I always give you. Let's get through the draft first. I'll add another layer of that. Let's get the transfer portal settled. And then once we get to that point, maybe. But I mean, we did this last year, and nobody saw Tennessee doing this.
yeah,
A&M and Auburn played the disrespect card all year, Blake. But I don't think that was really on us in the media because we looked at those teams and said, who are they?
yeah,
I mean, so many players in particular on A&M's team were transfers, at least half the lineup. Micah Dallas, who opened the year as, I guess, their Friday starter, transfer from Texas Tech. Auburn lands 2 or 3 key guys from Samford. You just don't know how that translates from the SoCon. For Sonny DeShera, it was no issue. Blake Rambush, JUCO kid, we just didn't really have a lot of familiarity with the kids in the league, not the way that you used to. And I do wonder if it'll be a little bit like that next year, to where when we make our predictions and start talking about the teams that we think will be factors, do we end up in the same place just because of the nature of the game now?
You know what I think about preseason predictions. I know we got to
Right.
do them, but I don't love them at all because I think there's just too many variables that we don't know. And like you said, that's why, especially, I mean, and especially like you said, right now, if you're trying to make those predictions now, like, and I know we do this like the way too early stuff and all that, but like even for baseball, basketball, football, whatever, like it's so hard. And even then, there's just so many moving pieces now with the transfer portal. I think it makes preseason predictions even more just impossible now, just because of so many moving parts, and we're not used to this. I mean, the trend started several years ago, but you just every season's different. And I think it's every team's different, and you just never know how a guy's going to translate from one place to another, and it just makes it so hard. So, yeah, I'll leave all the preseason predictions to you. Send
I
all your hate
think,
mail to Chris
right.
Lee is terrible at gmail.com. So
I get that
there you go.
anyway. I think, let me think of where to start. And again, a lot to be determined. Florida's going to be up there. Florida's young players really started to come through at season's end, especially pitching wise. The Gators always land a top 5 class. They're going to be back. LSU, I think you can presume, is probably going to be back. Want to see where the pitching settles. Um, Ole Miss will have Hunter Elliott back. It won't have Elko. It won't have Dunhurst. But I think they'll have some veteran pieces back. And I mean, and this is the thing that was underappreciated about Mike Bianco to begin with, is like, even though they didn't have the hardware, which was the complaint for a long time, they were good every year. They were always in the tournament. So they'll be back. Tennessee, I think, will be back. Tennessee brings back, I think, all those starters from the rotation. The bullpen is where Tennessee will have to reload. A lot of good young hitters on that team. They'll lose Beck. They'll lose Gilbert. They'll lose Lipscomb. I think they lose Ortega too, and Evan Russell. So a lot of holes to plug. But again, that was a deep bench this year. Arkansas, like I talked about Ole Miss, Arkansas always there. Dave Van Horn's only missed the tournament once. I liked what Hagen Smith showed at season's end. They had, goodness, just so many parts. Peyton Stovall was really coming on at the end of the season. I know I'm missing some names. They'll lose more. They'll lose Battles up the middle. They'll lose Wallace at third. But they'll always have talent. I think Vandy will be back after 14 and 16 season. They lose a couple top hitters, but they get Bradfield back. I think their pitching will be good. They got one big arm through the draft this week already, and may have some more to come. Tim Corbin had his first losing season since, I think, 2009 in the SEC. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be the same story next year. The league will be loaded, and it'll be deep.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So what you're saying is the league's got a chance to be pretty good next year.
Yeah. Well, and,
So
and the worst part is, like, I know I left somebody out who's good, right? I
everybody's
know
got a
that I
chance to
just
be good. Yeah,
shortchanged somebody. I don't know how Auburn and A&M reload if they do it with transfers again. Never count out Alabama for being competitive. They made a regional last year, could have made it this year, but the bubble got tight. So there'll be
yeah,
somebody that we didn't discuss in enough detail just now that in the season was a contender or something, and people may save this one and send us hate mail later, but that's the nature of the game.
that's all right. Yeah, you just name everybody. Remember, you go do what I do. Name everyone, then that way you,
Right,
you can't get anything wrong. Everybody's gonna be great. I'm picking every team to win. So there you go.
right. State will be interesting too. That'll be interesting to see how they reload after losing Sims. Um, just the wheels kind of came off there, which nobody expected. But
Yeah.
any hoops talk. The portal was pretty active for the league.
And now let me give you my preseason predictions for the entire SEC basketball season. I'm going to rank them. No, I'm sorry, I'm not doing that yet, guys. No,
Speaking of
I
which,
mean it's
we may have a little surprise for people. We're cooking up a little something over the summer.
yeah, yeah. We got some stuff in the works.
We're not ready to come out with it yet, but I think the folks will like it.
We got some stuff in the works. No, I mean it's been a good off season. I think basketball. There's a lot of teams. I think right now I stick with my group of teams that I had before that I think will be the leaders in the pack, and I think that's Arkansas, Kentucky, yeah, Tennessee, Alabama, Auburn. I think those are your top five in the SEC right now. That's what I would say. But I think there's some other teams that have had some good offseason. I think Florida's had a great offseason. I think LSU's had a good offseason. Missouri, my guy Dennis Gates, working his magic. So yeah, I think a lot of teams have had some really good off seasons. So it'll be interesting. It's just all about chemistry. I think there's a lot of new faces. LSU's got a brand new team basically. Um, Missouri somewhat same way. Florida's had a lot of new pieces, but they brought some guys back as we talked about with Castleton. Arkansas is gonna have a completely different starting lineup, but I still think they're a top 5, 7 team. I think it's the same with Kentucky. I put those two ahead of everybody else right now. I think Auburn's right there. So yeah, man, it's just I think you'll have as many as 5 teams in the top 20 probably going into the season. I think those first 5 I mentioned will all be top 20. Beyond that, I think again, I think some of these teams have new coaches or have a chance to really be to make a big jump. I mean, I think that we could be kind of undervaluing some of those teams, but I truly think Missouri has got a chance to make a jump. I think LSU, Matt McMahon's got some good guys coming in from Murray State, and I think Florida. I think Florida's the one that I'm really circling right now, and I'm so intrigued by what Todd Golden's done there so far. But and look, we've not even mentioned A&M and what Buzz could do
Yeah.
off of that run, to the NIT final. Mississippi State's got a new coach. I think Georgia's going to be better than most people think they're going to be with Mike White and the players he has on that roster now. So I'm sure again I forgot about somebody, but yeah, I think that there's a lot of potential. Should be another great season. So
Let's close here as I have kids to run places.
yep.
Anything surprise you or catch your attention as it related to the SEC and the NBA draft this week?
Mm, Not really, to be honest. I think that I'm gonna pull it up here because I don't remember the specific numbers on some of these guys, but um, there wasn't a whole lot. I mean, I think if some people, everybody kind of banked on Jabari Smith going number one. I thought that there was always the possibility he could slide to 3. But still, I mean, I think these guys are in a good spot. Some other guys, I mean, like, I think it's all about fit. I always say that. Like, it's not necessarily where you're drafted. I mean, Jalen Williams going 34th, I think surprised people, but you know me, I'm a big Jalen Williams fan. I think he'll translate fine to the NBA. I think he's one that because of how he plays, I think he may never be the superstar. He's never going to be the guy that you're going to go to in every single situation or anything. But I think it's just how he plays. Like he's the kind of guy to me you have to have on your team. If you're, again, let's say you're one of these teams, which we know how it works in the NBA now. You're just going out and picking up guys for roles, right? I think and I'm not just kind of, I'm going to say he's a role player, right? But like that's important when it comes to the NBA and you're trying to win championships.
Yeah.
So I think what he brings to the table, at least with the Thunder, they're not going to be winning a championship anytime soon. But I think that's an interesting one to look at. Kennedy Chandler. I mean, Kennedy Chandler, I think is going to do a great job. He goes all the way down at what was it, 38? I thought he would have went a little
Hmm.
sooner. Um, so I think there's a lot of interesting ones, but I can't say there's anything that was that shocking necessarily. I think Tari Eason has a chance to be the most
Hmm.
underrated of the group. To be honest with you, I think he's the one that could actually be the really breakout star, and he got picked at 17. I'm not saying he's going to be better than Jabari Smith or anything like that, but I think he's got a chance to be. We may look up in 5 years and say, "Boy, he was a steal at 17." So.
Parting thoughts.
No, as we said, if you're looking at this video and maybe it's not as clear and all this other stuff, like we're testing out some new software, all this other stuff. So we're going to play around with it. Things, trust me, there will be some experimentation over the next week or so. So don't don't lose it if it doesn't look as great, and we're gonna play around with this and make it work. So we're trying out some new things, and yeah, I think we've almost got it the way we want it. We just got to tweak some stuff, and we need to see it in action a little bit. So yeah, so be sure to hit that subscribe button, and yeah, we are back. I feel like we need like the Michael Jordan. I'm back, or something like we could probably find a way to put that on the screen, but that's okay.
Yeah, we'll have a few more of these. I'd like to do something for the MLB draft, maybe before and after, and we'll find probably an excuse to do something before. We've got football coming, a lot of football this year. We've got a new partner that we're going to be excited to unveil. We're not there ready to announce it yet, but that's going to be cool. There's going to be a lot of football content this year. Kind of the
Yeah.
way we did for basketball, where we had something every day. It's going to be almost like that for football. So
Yep, got a lot of football stuff coming. So
yeah. So anyway, I'm on the mend, not back at full strength, but enough to do this. And so again, if you're wondering why the content hasn't been here, or even at the site, it's me. And I had to get well first and pace myself, but I can feel the energy coming back, and certainly the enthusiasm, and can't wait to do these again, just like we were doing them this winter. It just was so much fun. We appreciate our audience. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.